Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight to see our esteemed guest, Mr. Charles Doyle. For those of you who don't know, Mr. Doyle is a native of Long Island, New York. We'll forgive him for that, though, right? Yes.
I was supposed to introduce you.
Oh!
It's Jennifer.
Yeah, in case anyone who doesn't know who I am at this point. I'm Jennifer Beacom. I'm the president of the Historical Society. We're going on year 2 of being the president. Everybody is welcome back to the Historical Society. We're open now Tuesdays from 2 to 4, Saturdays from 2 to 4. And one of my own personal pet projects at RHS is working with young people, working with our high school students. We've, for the last 18 months, had probably 20 kids from Agnes Irwin, from Radnor High, from Friends Central, come, and they're doing just a myriad of projects for me, scanning, cataloging, you name it. So if you know any young people who need volunteer hours, send them my way. I am happy to oblige. All 3 of the volunteers that I wrote recommendations for to get into the National Honor Society this year got in. So I think that's a yes. I think that's a good thing. So, okay, so let me go back to our, but enough about me. Let me go back to our guest of honor tonight, Mr. Doyle. Like I said, he's a native of Long Island, and at 98 years old, Mr. Doyle has lived in Radnor Township for more than 50 years. He served in the 169th Ordnance Depot Company as a T5, and he'll explain what that means, spending time in England, France, and Belgium. After the war, he attended Siena College and majored in accounting. He married, now see if I can get this right, Micheline Corvisier, that's close, whom he met in France during his time there. The majority of Charlie's professional career was spent with the McCormick Spice Company, where he worked in sales. It was this job that brought the Doyle family to Radnor after living in Hartford, Connecticut and Enfield, Massachusetts. Charlie is the father of 2 daughters. He has 4 grandchildren, 3 of whom are here today, which I think is a real testament to the good kind of grandfather that this gentleman is. And 7 great-grandchildren, am I right about that?
Yeah.
Very good.
9. One of whom is here.
9. One of whom is here. 9.
Yeah.
9. Yeah.
9.
9. I stand corrected. 9. One of whom is here tonight. So again, more testament to what a wonderful grandfather he
My
is.
great-granddaughter.
You're great right there, yes.
Wow.
So with no further ado, I'm going to sit down here. I'm going to pretend I'm Oprah. How about that? And what do you prefer? Do you want to just talk, or do you want me to ask you questions?
Well, I'll go through some of this stuff, and then if there's things that you
Absolutely.
want to question.
Yes.
First of all, if you expect a John Wayne story here, you're going to be disappointed. There's no heroics on my part, and I was never in combat, so just so you know where I am. I was born with glasses. I came out of the womb with glasses. I had glasses on all my life, and I always had one pair, and I never lost them. Several years ago, and I'll talk to my eye doctor when I see him this year. I see him once a year. When I talk to him, I'll ask him when he did the job, but he did cataract job on me, and they put new lenses in on me. And I came out, and I'm 20/20 coming out of the thing. I have these things, reading glasses. If I'm in good light, I can see without the glasses on. So it's a little bit part of the story, is that comes when we're talking about the Navy. In 1942, a friend of mine, Eddie Azigian, and I both wore glasses. We tried to get into the Navy. I got shot down because of the eyesight. Eddie got past the eyesight, even though his was as bad as mine, and he got to the farther down the medical line, and they caught him. He had rheumatic fever when he was young, so they knocked him out of the Navy situation. Neither of us made it because of that. But in January '43, we were drafted, and we went to Camp Upton out along the eastern end of Long Island. we were there they told us, don't wear a lot of clothes because you gotta ship them back, and just come, you'll get your military clothes when you get there. The fact of the matter was, I put a little sweater on, and that's how I went down, and it was freezing. And not only that, it was 3 days before they closed it. So we got there, and we got there good and cold. So we were down there, and they put us on a train, and we didn't know where we were going. But we had thought we were going to the parachute, because we put that in. But first of all, if we made it, I wouldn't be here today. If we did the parachute. There's no question about that. We ended up in Louisville, Kentucky. AFRTC, Armored Force Replacement Training Center. The tanks were there. And I assumed, and most of us assumed, that we were going to be part of a tank ordinance. They had said that each tank division would have its own ordinance. And whatever it was, they changed that, and we were just plain ordinance at that point. We thought we were going to go be in the ordnance, tank ordnance, because we had a guy from Schenectady who was working and made the tanks in Schenectady, and he could take a tank apart, put it back together again. So we just assumed we were going to be tank ordnance, which now it turned out to be completely incorrect. One of the stories is, several of us said, we're going to go to Africa, so what difference does it make? The war was in Africa, going on in Africa. So we got our heads shaved. We said, we got our heads shaved. When we got finished, it was Patsy LaRocco and me were the only two that got their heads shaved. And we arrived in Jersey and Camp Upton in what was it, okay, I'm losing the name, but well, anyhow, we got in there, and we were the only two people who didn't have any hair. Today it's the thing to be shaved heads, but with a lot of young girls around it, I can't say. It wasn't. It kills me, I can't think of the USO. USO.
Sure.
They had dances and stuff. And here we are with all these billiard balls. Then we got put on a ship, and we assumed that we were going to go to Africa. We ended up in England. Now, the war was going badly for the Americans in 1942, and for the Allies it was going bad, if you read your history. And I don't want to take credit for all of this, but I went in the Army in 1943, and we started winning the war. All the credit. So we ended up in England, and the first thing we were, when we were landed, there were a bunch of British people on the docks, and a lot of kids there. And these kids had never seen a banana, had never seen an orange. They never knew what it was. And we did have oranges, and we were throwing them off the boat. You should have seen us scramble for oranges. It was funny, but it was sad. You know, kids, what they went through, which as Americans, we didn't go. American children didn't go through that during the war. We were down in Kentucky, and one of the stories was President Roosevelt was coming to Kentucky. Either 7th Street or 7th Avenue is the main drag in in Fort Knox. And so we were getting ready for the president to come. We cleaned the barracks like you wouldn't believe. And 7th Avenue's like this, and the barracks were over here. There was a distance between us and 7th Avenue. But we took the hoses down and we washed the streets. We scrubbed the streets with the hose cleaned for the president's coming. So when he came, there were guys with machine guns all over the place saying, "Don't stick your head out the window. Don't stick." This is Americans. They're saying, "Don't stick your..." They're afraid for the president. They were guarding him like you wouldn't believe. So we could see out the window. You'd see a line of cars going in, and you have to presume the president was in one of them. But we never really saw it. That was in Fort Knox. We didn't end up in Africa. We ended up, as I said, in Liverpool. And the first job we had, we were unloading trains. The flat cars would come in with the great big boxes on there. I would take the grappling hooks and I would hook them on the side. The guy with the crane would lift it up, take it out, and chop a hole in there, and he'd rip all this wood off break the box down, and there were jeeps in there. The jeeps were sent over in boxes. Later on, they changed that and they covered them with grease so that, what the hell was that?
Something with an M.
No.
Mercurium?
No, I can't think of the name of it. If I come back, but it was covered with grease. So they were afraid of salt water hitting them when they were coming over on the boats. That's why they were boxed. Cosmoline. They covered them with cosmoline, which is just a grease at the end, and then they would wash the grease off instead of. So that was our first job, and we were at the railroad station there. We got moved out to a place called Buckfastleigh, which the big town is named Luggershaw. Buckfastleigh was just a great big field. I went back several years ago to see where I came from, and no one ever heard of Buckfastleigh. So obviously it was just, even I talked to the postmaster in Luggershaw, and he said he never heard of Buckfastleigh. So evidently it was absorbed into one of the townships around there. But I did go back and take a look at it. We were stationed, it was near the church. I think I even wrote it down. I can't think of it. Stonehenge.
Oh.
If you saw the movie, I can't think of the name of the movie.
Do you want the movie? Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap.
There you go.
You saw the movie Spinal Tap. One of the scenes, it was, they were going to do the show, and it was going to be about Stonehenge. You have to have seen the movie to appreciate it. But the movie was Stonehenge. We were in a triangle between Stonehenge and the big church down there. But in the movie, they tell him to set up this thing for the Stonehenge scene. It was supposed to be a life-size Stonehenge, and it comes out.
It's a little bitty.
A little bit. Oh, see the movie. You'll love it. Anyhow, we were in the field there, and what we had, and then this goes on when we went into France, we were a field depot. We were in charge of General Motors, which I was in charge of, General Motors 6x6s, which is the big truck. They had Dodges, which was the weapons carrier, and they had Jeeps, and we had the parts for all those. We would, as people would come in with a requisition for parts, we would supply that. We'd put the requisitions together, he would go back to the main depot and replace the stuff, so whatever we took away during the day was replaced the next day, so we always had stuff on hand for them. When we left Buckfastleigh, we went over to France, and I don't know where we landed in France, but that's where we went. And finally we went to a town called Bazincourt. Bazincourt was a small village, and it was about 7 to 12 miles west of the Reims Cathedral. That was the big thing in the area, was the Reims Cathedral. That's where I met my wife. You heard that story.
No, not everybody heard it. Tell them again. Tell them.
Well, the railroad went like this. It had a bridge over it like that. This side was Bazincourt, which was a town, but it was a small town, but they had things. They had a hairdresser there, they had a bar there, they had a cafe. There were all cafes in France. And stores. They had some stores there that you could. And my wife's family lived on the other side of the bridge, and about 2, 3, 4 miles. Well, I used to walk it. It seemed like it was 100 miles, but and they lived down there. They would. My mother-in-law, future mother-in-law, and future wife were in there, and they rode their bicycles to Bazincourt from Ile. And as they were approaching the bridge, she had asked her father, or told her father, that she wanted to invite some Americans for dinner on Sunday. And she stopped and bonjour, and so we were talking, and she invited the three of us. I was with two other guys going to work at the railroad station where our trailers were parked, and we were invited to lunch on Sunday. They didn't speak French, and when Sunday came, I didn't tell them what the conversation was about, and I went alone. and that started the beginning of a romance that lasted 62 years, I guess. What was it? It was over 60.
65.
Something like that. So that was the job we had there. We were, as I said earlier, that life isn't fair. And you'll find this out. And I don't know if you heard the story. Boss told me, how do you pay a man? He says, you pay him two ways. You either pay him too much or too little. It's not, you don't pay a man exactly right. And this happened in the Army. We were much better off than the guys who were getting killed, believe me. And there were people who were better than us. If you were stationed in Paris or London, we were stationed out in open fields, basically, all during the war. Although we did get we got a furlough to London, and when the war was over, we got a furlough to Switzerland, which was a great thing. It was the cleanest country I've ever seen in my life, unbelievably. And the people were so nice to us We ran into a guy, there were 3 or 4 of us together. One of the guys was Jewish. This guy spoke German. They were close enough where they could tell us what they wanted to tell us. But he invited us, and he paid for everything. He was a great big guy. He was a skier. But he invited us, and he paid for everything. It was just, you wouldn't believe how nice the people were. So that was towards the end of the war. The end of the war, we were then shipped to Mormelon, which is a town close by where we were. And we were then a depot, oh God, what's, I remember, you know, in a salvage depot. And a big truck comes in one day, and it's full of German pistols, German guns, German swords, helmets, the whole schmear, and he wants to drop it off. This load in Paris was worth maybe $10,000. And you take this, of course we take this stuff. And the guy says, who's going to sign for it? The dumbest thing I ever did. We got in the truck and went away. Somebody made a lot of money on that truckload, because there were Mausers in there were Lugers in there. And, oh. I've gone through life signing things without looking at them. Can't get any worse than what happened there. And the last thing that happened to us, we were in Belgium, sinister Belgium. This is where we were going to go away. Cigarettes cost us 10 cents a pack. You know, in New York City, they were getting $10 a cigarette or something like that. No, it was $10 a pack in New York. And we were getting a carton for $1. And it was worth a lot more money to the Belgians and the French. You know, American cigarettes were a very good product for sale. And we were in there, and they wouldn't let us. We had barracks bags full of cartons of cigarettes, and they wouldn't let us out. They took us from there. They shipped us in and put us on the boat. And the cleaning lady came in, and if she was smart, she was the richest goddamn cleaning lady you ever saw. She got those bags out of there. She would have been so rich, because they were selling for so much more than 10 cents a pack.
Really?
10 cents a pack.
Wow.
That's a half a cent a cigarette. Cigarettes were worth 50 cents a piece in
America.
I don't know what they are now.
No.
A pack of cigarettes. I haven't smoked since I was 40.
That's a good thing.
No, it is good.
Yes.
It is a good thing. My mother was saying medical records, that was her job. She did medical. And she said we'd go to these conventions, and the doctors would come out and say at the convention, they cigarettes is bad for you, it is bad for you. And then these doctors would all come out at the intermission and light up. But I stopped. I took my mother's advice on a lot of things. No.
It's good.
If you want to hear the story, I'll tell you the story. Anyhow, that was the end. The army was sort of stand and wait. We got it to Dick's, and we came home on a boat, and the boat was supposed to go to New York. We were all from New York, the whole team, and we were all going to go AWOL, because we were close to home. And we got caught in the storm, and we ended up landing in Boston, and this was on Christmas Day. and there was no point in going AWOL when you were up in Boston. But they did, from Christmas Day to New Year's, they shipped us out of Divas in Boston area, and down to Dick's. And Dick's, they ran us through, they gave us a physical, and give you the paperwork, and you were signed out of the Army. I got out of the Army, and there's a bus going to the train station. I got on the bus, and I get to the train station. There's a train going to New York, Penn Station. And when I got to Penn Station, the guy said, well, let's have some drinks. And I said, let me see what the Long Island Railroad schedule says. So I went down, Long Island Railroad is lower than the regular station. And I went down there, there's a train going out to Long Island, and I got on that train, and nothing ever went so quick. And the Army is getting out. Got home, and there's my cousin, Fraser, and the Army's had a jacket, like a suit coat jacket, but then when Eisenhower got the Eisenhower jacket, which came to here, and we all had Eisenhower jackets on, and then my cousin, and he's got his suit on, and he's younger than me, and I figured, you know, I'm out. I said, you want a night jacket? He said, yeah, so takes the night jacket. I find out later he not only has been in the war, he has been at the Battle of the Bulge, and he was wounded, and he was home from the Battle of the Bulge. He had been wounded. He asked him, you know, I'm the big hero, and I asked him, you know, what was it like? He said to me, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. So that was the end of my military experience. From there, they had something called 2050 Club, which they were going to give you $20 a week for 50 weeks. I took 2 weeks, and I went off to school. So, if there's any other questions you got, go ahead.
How did you get Micheline to come over?
Oh, we got married over there.
Oh, okay.
We got married over there.
Tell us what your future father-in-law thought of her bringing this American home.
Oh, he had no joy about America. And the first thing is, you go over there and you address a young lady as Mademoiselle, you know. And I'm in a hi, Micheline, how are you? And the father said, if this is how it starts, get rid of this guy. But he and I ended up very, very close. He had a son, another son and a daughter, and they all had contracts. I was married without contract. Contract is a prenup. So he thought enough of me that I didn't have a prenup with him. He had money. He was loaded.
Well, what did you do when the war was done? So you just started to say it.
Well, there was a family, I can't think of their name, but we had 9 kids, and he put all 9 through college, and he didn't have enough money to buy a car. They didn't own an automobile, but he worked for not the military, but
The government.
the Veterans Administration. And I went to go to college. The first place I went was NYU, which I had gone to while I was working in New York. I went to night school at NYU, and I went there, and I said, you know, and so she said, yeah, first class is at 7 o'clock. And I said, I don't get up that early. She said, no, it's not 7 o'clock in the morning, it's 7 o'clock at night. And I said, I don't want to go to night school. No spots left by the time I got there. My mother had an uncle who was a Jesuit, who was at Fordham. He was the managing editor of Thought magazine, which is a very intellectual thing. I remember every time Father Elmer came down to see us, we'd put Thought magazine on the table. No one read it, no one understood it. But we always had the magazine out there. And I said, they said, and Fordham, what about Fordham? And he said, they made one spot for one more guy, and it was the Cardinal's nephew. So that was out. But I can't think of his name, but he had nine kids.
Tejan?
And he got them all through college.
Tejan? You're talking about the Tejans? Tejans.
No. Even when he was in my class, and one of them was in the Navy, and he was a pilot in the Navy, and the plane crashed, broke every bone in his body, and he came back. He was just toughness in that family, and he ended up, he was a Radnor. I'll think of his family name eventually. But the point was, he said there was a place available in Albany, which was Siena College, which actually is just outside of Albany. So I got in the car with my father, and we drove up to Albany, and who do I run into but a guy I was in high school with. And he takes me in hand. Albany, Siena was not, it was a day hop, because they didn't have dormitories at that time, and we were boarders. We boarded there were not that many, 2 or 3 houses that took in boarders. So he took me through the whole system, got me registered, got me on, got me to the boarding house. He was an old man and his wife. The wife was dead, but she raised dogs, so he had 2 old setters there that I guess he was waiting for them to die. And he raised chickens, because during the war you couldn't get beef, but you could get chickens, and he was doing 144 gross a week. That's a lot of chickens. It's an enormous amount of chicken. And the war ended and the chicken business dropped off to nothing. So they stopped breeding immediately. But we lived in the boarding house, and you would believe how many eggs we ate. All the eggs. So that was my experience there. But I will tell you this, because my mother said to me, there's 3 things I want when I went away to school. And she wrote, she said, there's 3 things I want you to do. She said, I want you to have a bank account. I've had a bank account since I got out of the Army. Never a savings account, but always had a checking account. And she said, I want you to have a budget. And I have had a budget since I got out. And she says, I want you to keep track of what you're spending. So while I didn't make much money, I managed it well. And I still have a budget. I make a budget up every year. I keep track of everything I spend. And I managed.
That's good.
Good advice.
I'm not as much money as they're starting out. Started out at $40 a week. And I said, if I ever make $100 a week, I'll get married. No, if I make $40 a week, I'll get married. If I make $100 a week, I will never ask for another penny. I got $1,400, $1,300 Social Security, and I'm going to quit at $100 a week. So, but
Tell us how you ended up in Radnor.
oh, Radnor. My cousin, who's 105 in January,
Good
and
genes.
his husband just died 2 years ago. He was 101 with Chandler's, and they're the artists. And I was taking a guy's job. I was kind of the district manager for McCormick up in this I don't know.
Enfield.
No, not Enfield.
Hartford.
Boston.
Where the hell are we now?
Philadelphia. Yes.
In the Philadelphia area. I was the district manager for the Philadelphia area. And my cousin, who was with Gulf Oil, and he had a job. He got a job down here. As you come off the Schuylkill, the big building used to be the Gulf Building. I don't know if any of you remember that, but there's the Gulf. And he was working there, and he was commuting from New York. And my mother said to him, "What's wrong with you? If you're working there, go there." So he came down and he bought a house. They bought a beautiful house, Canterbury Lane, in Berwyn. So my cousin Jean, 105, she would go out during the day and look old factory. We would have a couple of drinks, and we would go out looking. And she would look to the house and look in the windows while people were eating supper. And she didn't find this, but we came here because she was here in this area. The guy who I replaced was in Fort Washington, so I could have ended up in Fort Washington if she wasn't here. So we were going around, we were looking for houses, and I had my wife and I, and she got in the car and she'd go to a house, the broker. Lucy Libby was the broker's name.
She worked for Mr. Agnew.
Worked for Radnor.
Good memory.
And how come I remember Lucy Libby? I can't remember whether that we were
She got you
in
to
Philadelphia.
Well, she got you to spend a lot of money, that's why.
So she was taking us out and we'd pull up to a house and go, she said, "I made an appointment." I don't care what you mean. And we pulled up to the house on Ascot Road, and my wife looked at the house and she said, "That's the house." Didn't get out of the car, "That's the house." Needed work, but that's the house. And they wanted $30,000 for the house. No, $33,000 for the house. I offered $27,000 for the house. I think she came down to 30,000. 30,000, 300,000, it's 30,000.
30,000.
30,000 for
This
the
was
house.
1960 something, right?
No.
67. 1967.
And she came down to 3, I went up to 27, and the broker said, if you go to 29.5, you can get the house. I called up my wife and I said, "Do you like that house?" She said, "I love that house." I said, the money was as tight as 2 coats of paint.
Your budget. What the hell?
But we weren't big country clubbers or stuff like that. We were just plain ordinary people. And so we bought the house. Done a ton of work on it. And what was the other part of the story?
Well, there was something you brought.
Oh yes, when we were in Enfield, there was a guy who had a nursery, and he would sell you dead bushes. He didn't care, but he had a kid. He had a kid. No, I'm serious. He dying bushes. He would sell them. But he had a kid that worked for him who was in the business because he liked nursery, the flowers and stuff. And he said, I said, I want to get a tree. And I can't even remember, I didn't remember the name of the tree for years, but I've since forgotten it. And he said, he says, there's one over in Suffield. I don't know if you people know anything about Connecticut, but Suffield is across the river. And he said, there's a house there, and they have one of these orders, so you go over and you take a look and you'll see what it looks like. I went over and never found the house, but I came back and bought the tree. And it was just a sapling. And we planted it when we were in Enfield. I got transferred from Connecticut to Boston, and we bought a house up in Boston, and I literally took the tree up to Boston. We were in Framingham, and we were next to the oldest house in Framingham, or in the United States, or something. It was full of antiques and all kinds of stuff. So I planted the tree, and then we were in Enfield, but a couple of years, Framingham, but a couple of years, and I got transferred down to Philadelphia. And as we were going in the contract, the guy says, you got your tree here. And he says, no one takes their trees. I said, we would. We take our tree, and we took our tree, and we took it put down inside the front lawn of the house. Now I was so proud of that tree, but I wouldn't prune it. I didn't want. I called up the tree was here, and the lines from the telephone, electric lines were here, and I said, those SCPs are going to come in, and they're going to butcher that tree. And I raised hell with didn't raise hell. I asked them very frankly. They were very nice. But the wires going to the house with the tree, and they moved the wires for me to the other side of the house. So they did that, no charge. They moved those wires so that I could. And I never cut a branch on that tree.
Wow.
They had pruned it. The guys people who've owned it since have pruned it, and it's still a beautiful tree there. And what the hell kind of a tree was it?
I think it was a cut-leaf beech.
Yeah, beech. Yeah, it was a cut-leaf beech. And it was a beautiful tree. But, and it's still there, because I ride by the house once in a while, not to see the house, but to see
The tree. You must be a real gardener.
It's a beautiful tree, but they have pruned it. They have pruned it. But it's got to be an enormous tree.
Good.
So if you got any
Any other questions?
all right. The last thing is medals.
Yes.
And I was gonna do. Did I do the funny minute? I don't think I did the funny minute. This is another story. This is you can I'll leave it on the table or something. You can look. This is for rifle. This is for shooting, and this is rifle, which is the lowest you can get, except or not get anything. And it goes up to marksman. The different tags, how well you shoot. And to be honest, I was down there, and I was up shooting, and we had M1s with big heavy guns, and bingo in the bullseye, bingo on the circle, bingo on the circle, and there was one shot. I saw it hit dust the ground, and I was in the circle there, and I said, let's hit the ground, bounced up into the target. So that when the time came for us to go down to where the targets were, the targets come down, they stick a plug in where you shot, and I went down the shot, and I found out nobody failed. Nobody failed. No matter where, the one that hit the ground, hit the target also. The captain we had wanted to get home safe. He wanted to get through this war safe. I'm convinced of that. He was tight on passes. We didn't get that many passes. Other people got a hell of a lot more passes than we did. but he didn't want us in any trouble. And everybody in the company passed the rifle test, although there were some guys who could shoot. Yeah, I don't think, remember his name, there were 200 guys in this thing. But he got the top medal, whether it was marksman or, I forget what the different grades were. Rifle was the lowest, and marksman may have been the highest. But if I got in a fight, I would like to have been with that guy. Because he could shoot. And what happened after the army, after that? Well, that was about all I could think of.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you see your friends from the army afterward? Did you keep in touch?
With the soldiers?
Yeah, your friends.
No, only a couple, because we were all from New York, and you know what the cadre is. The cadre is what they take from some other outfit, and they were the first sergeant, the tech sergeant, they were the leaders of this. A couple of those people, a couple of the cadre were from New York, state of New York, and the whole company came from New York. We were all from New York State. What I learned is, as a New Yorker, Long Islander, everybody could read and write, everybody could swim, and everybody could drive an automobile. It was automatic. You're 16, you're driving. And you go to Jones Beach and you're swimming. And I found out that we had guys in the company, a lot of guys in the company who couldn't swim, a couple who couldn't drive, and what was the other thing?
Read or write?
Yeah, we had at least 2 guys there who couldn't read or write, because he would get a letter and somebody would read it for him, and someone would write a letter. And this is the state of New York. This is the state in the United States. And we got guys who can't read and write, Now this, I don't know whether it's changed whether we've gotten any better or not, but there were guys in the army and they couldn't read or write. So, that was my experience with the camp and the guys. We also had should I go into this?
Talk about whatever you want.
We had the company thief. Yeah, something's gone, it was him. We knew it. And they had, one of the jobs was the guys who kept the fires. They had like potbelly stoves, and this was when we were in barracks. And his job was to keep the fires going all night long, and he was off all day long. And his job was just to go around. And then when we were in the field, there were the honey buckets guys. And the honey bucket guys took care of the poop.
Someone had
They
to.
would take the buckets, and they would call them the honey buckets. And that was their only job. It was a great job on a time basis. Got plenty of time off, but I would rather work.
Well, I think one thing that's important that we are learning today, and you sell yourself short on, is how important suppliers are. I mean, look at everything we're dealing with, supply chain. That's what you did. I mean, without your job, my own grandfather was in a tank, wouldn't have been able to do that. So you keep that in mind.
I'll tell you 2 thrilling things in the Army. We supplied 6x6s. The 6x6s was the Red Ball Express. These were all black guys a lot of them didn't read or write, and they would come to me and they'd say, you know, I need, what's it look like? Is this what you want? Yeah, that's what I want. And then I would fill out the requisition for them, and they would take the part. But where they would drive those trucks up to where the action was, with whatever they were taking up, and they would go like hell. I'm pretty sure they had 6x6s where had a governor on them at 60 miles an hour, and they were going more than 60 miles an hour. Took the governors off those trucks. And when you see those guys coming through, you get the hell out of the way because they ain't gonna stop them. And you see them go. And I am telling you, the hair on your neck would go up when you see them go. And towards the end of the war, it almost made you feel sorry for the Germans. But the planes would come over, there'd be 3 and 6 and 9. It looked like 1,000 planes, all bombers. And boy, I wouldn't want to be in Germany when but they would come and come and come and see them coming. God, how many planes do we have?
Right. Now, Mr. Doyle, you know, we hear of your service, and I thank you for your service, but it always amazes me that we hear that there was no awareness of the camps, of the concentration camps. Do you recall anything being there and having that awareness?
No, I knew nothing about the camps. I knew nothing about the camps. And I wasn't there when they freed me. No, I don't take credit for any of that stuff.
How did the war change your life?
I would have to say, when the war was over, the government had the GI Bill, and I went to college free.
Good.
And I made more money having been educated than I would have made, but I paid more taxes. So me and the government, me and the government come pretty much squared off on
You probably paid a lot more in taxes than Sienna cost back then.
They paid for everything, and I'm pretty sure we got some cash. I don't wear rings. I know it's just something that I do. I don't like anything on my hands. But the company had the school has got a ring, great big college ring,
Sure.
and it was free.
No.
And I didn't take it. I didn't want anything going on my head. It's just queerness of me, another queerness of me. But going back to this, this is for the rifle. This is something that they gave to the veterans after the war, and I think, what does it say? It says lapel button. You would wear this little button. And we called it was called the ruptured duck. And you laugh, I didn't. Well, anyhow, if you can shake it down so we get a look at it. Let's see, the medals. This is the Good Conduct Medal. And the Good Conduct Medal was a morale booster, I think. Because if you didn't shoot the company commander, you got one. So everybody in the Army got a Good Conduct Medal. I'll leave it there so you can see.
Did you ever think about shooting the company?
A lot of us did. I think we would have rather shot the first sergeant.
Fair enough.
This is where you were. That's European Theater of Operations. The star on the medal is for battles. I was never in a battle, but what I had, this is not the original. You can write to the government and send them paperwork, and they will give you, still, I could get another set of these if I wanted. But the one, I gave the other ones to somebody, but it didn't have the star on. Star is a battle. This is undeserved, the star on mine. Just the ribbons is on. And that shows that we were in the European Theater of Operations. I guess my brother was in Pacific, so it must be the PTO, Pacific Theater of Operations. And the last one is the Victory Medal, which shows that we won the war. And I'm not a communist, but the Russians took a worse beating than anybody. Stalin just sent them in. If you watch the World War II movies, and that shows the Victory Medal.
Nice.
And everybody got one of those too.
Where were you when you heard Germany surrendered?
We were probably one of the at the camp there. The camp, because they surrendered was over just in Reims.
Oh, okay.
If we'd been on vacation or on furlough in Reims, we could have been
Part of this, yes.
of some.
Did you celebrate? Did you and your,
Yes, everybody was delighted.
I'm sure.
We were delighted.
Wow.
So that's the war, and as I say, I went off to school. Did I tell you what my mother told me?
Yes.
Yeah.
About keeping the budget.
Yes. That's how you were able to buy that house.
Yeah.
That's how we managed to keep it.
Well, but you didn't tell him, okay, so you bought the house for $29,500.
29.5,
Uh-huh.
and we sold it in a bad situation. It was terrible. My wife died, and we sold it. We sold it for $625,000. $625. I thought it was. The guy kept saying, "Oh, the neighborhood this is a 600 neighborhood." I said, "Yeah, but I don't live in this neighborhood. I live around the corner in Askin Road, which is the 800,000." but the market was real bad. It was real bad when we sold. We were $600,000, but it just sold for $1.5 million. So I was right. It was worth more than. But the market was just plain bad.
Were you drafted or did you just show up?
No, I was drafted.
Yeah.
I was drafted. But I did try and get in the Navy.
Oh, that's right.
I did try and
Yeah.
we tried to get in the Navy.
Anything else?
Why they needed glasses, why they wouldn't take a guy with glasses in the Navy, I'll never know. You know, you go downstairs and you're working, shoveling coal in the bottom of the ship or whatever you're doing. What difference does it make whether you get a good look at the coal, you just kind of musty looking. So if you got any questions that I could answer, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
How about your brother? Did he go, did your brother do what you did with the GI Bill?
My brother was something with, was it?
Oh, he did a telegraph?
No.
Morse code.
I don't know if it was the Morse code. It was something to do with communications, though. It was communication. And he has pictures of Ernie Pyle, if you...
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I have his pictures still. He's passed away 10 years now or something like that. We're dropping like flies. I'm the last of the Doyles.
Oh, you have 3 generations here.
But they're not Doyles.
Oh, that's
Well, no, I mean, start out as a Doyle.
She was a Doyle. You're the second last of the Doyles.
We have a little something for you to thank you for doing this today. And I sure hope we've done the right, here, let me take this.
You should have done it.
Oh, well, you could have told me no when I called on the phone and begged you to.
I think that's it.
Now, you know why I picked Snoopy? Because Charles Schultz was a World War II veteran.
Charles,
Yes.
and he died the week he did.
He did,
Last
yes.
cartoon.
Yes,
I like Snoopy.
I did too.
He get his football right.
He couldn't. No, poor Charlie Brown.
You know, you shouldn't have done it.
Well, I hope you like it. I hope I've done the right one. Is that your tree?
Always.
Turn it around.
Let's see. Turn it around, Doyle.
Oh,
Hot beach.
A beach.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. That was the right tree.
big tree, wow.
Yes.
It's good, it's a beautiful tree now.
That picture was taken this week.
And they've pruned.
Well, you never did.
I don't think it was wrong, but when I got it, I just said, I'm not gonna cut a leaf off of this tree.
That's great.
Not me.
Beautiful.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much. I can't.
Good. I'm glad you like it. It's David's idea. He gets all the credit.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You want me to take it for you?
It's a, yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. Could I see that? Could you turn it
All right,
around?
with
Well,
that,
thank you, yes.
why don't we, give them a break, get up and mingle, and there's some food and drink if you like.
Yes,
And we have some maps and prints too.
absolutely. And today is my Vice President Lynn's 21st birthday.
Hey,
So
Lynn.
we have bought her a cake from Clay's. If people like Clay's, that's my husband's favorite bakery.
Yeah.
So please, there's cake in the back as well to celebrate.
And there are other
But thank you,
desserts.
Charlie.
Thank you.
Yes.